Studios, the AusBiz COB is the key stuff you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Well, hello, and welcome to the COB on this Monday afternoon. It is the 7th of July. I'm Nadine Blaney, and as always, it is a pleasure to be here with you on a day where we had a bit of a lackluster performance being put in by the local market. That's the CIBO Australia Index on your screen, off by 0.2%. Asian stock markets in general did slip. We've got a bit of confusion around the tariff situation in the United States. So U.S. officials flagged a delay on tariffs, but really did fail to provide specifics on the changes. And so we've watched U.S. futures come under pressure throughout the day today. The Nikkei has slipped on that, just uncertainty on the trade front. You know that July 9th was that deadline that the U.S. administration had put in place for these trade deals to be done. We have heard that it has been, in some cases, the deadline has been extended until August the 1st, that the U.S. administration will be sending letters to some countries. But we've also heard, from the likes of Japan, saying that they're not going to be rolling over in any trade negotiations. I mean, trade negotiations usually take, years, and some of these are having to be done in no time at all. So we'll see how this ends up, but safe to say, it did create a bit of uncertainty today. Also, keep in mind that oil prices are sliding. We've got OPEC Plus agreeing to open up supply more than expected. That happened over the weekend. And so that has put pressure on the energy names as well. So European futures are easing, FTSE futures as well, DAX futures at this time at least holding pretty steady. We will check the S&P ASX 200 once the last of the day's trades go through. But safe to say it's been a pretty blue Monday. I don't know if any of you are new order fans out there, but I like it. And we are also watching a lot of these gold miners today coming through with production reports. Well, Northern Star is a falling star. Its share price has been hammered as its production update and production guidance did disappoint. And then on the macro, it was a pretty quiet day today. We did have ANZ jobs data, job vacancies data coming through at 11:30, but as we speak, the RBA board, well, perhaps they're wrapping up pretty soon, but they did begin their two-day meeting in Sydney. And all expectations are for an interest rate cut come tomorrow. I've got to say, it would really set a cat amongst the pigeons if we do not see a cut coming through tomorrow. So we were speaking with our guests throughout the day about that one. We'll bring you some of their analysis a little bit later in the program. Sectors of the day today, shall I run you through those? Well, we did see gold, gold stocks. I don't know why that chart's in there. I was hoping to look at the gold stocks. I think that might have been my mistakes. Northern Star really leading the losses, off by close to 9%. Evolution off by 2.5%. But right around the gold space, there wasn't a whole lot of enthusiasm, except for those idiosyncratic companies that did report their production today, beating expectations, and that includes Bellevue Gold. But you can see most of those big players really getting hit particularly hard. Northern Star, the worst performer by far. It saw its production come in toward the lower end of its guidance, and I think it just goes to show that even though the gold price has been doing extraordinary things, this is where a lot of, investors say you still take on risk if you decide to invest in gold miners, gold producers. So the FY26 guidance in RBC's view for for Northern Star is weak, and costs and capex were high. So even though the gold price has been doing wonderful things for a lot of these gold companies, a lot of it still comes down to execution, and that's where the risk lies. Energy. So it could have been a lot worse here, I think, when you consider the pressure coming through from the price of oil. As I mentioned, OPEC is opening up the spigots, and it will be pumping more production than originally had been anticipated. Santos, pretty impressively, I guess, is up by 0.6%. And we've got the likes of Karoon, which is very leveraged to the oil price, It's the only pure play oil producer in Australia, listed here anyways, and it's up by about 0.25%. So we'll be watching to see what happens with energy, because it is sort of, there's a silver lining to this, of course. If we do see oil prices come off, petrol prices fall, then that takes a lot of the pressure away in terms of energy inflation. So yeah, take that into consideration. Now, one of the underperforming sectors were the materials names. Interesting to see BHP off by 0.1%, while Fortescue is up by 0.3%. We did learn that South 32 will be offloading nickel operations in northern Colombia. South 32, by the way, was one of the stocks we covered on the call. You can listen to today's episode to find out what Kai Chen from MPC Markets and David Lane from Ord Minnett reckon when it comes to South 32. But really one of the biggest risk events is obviously that July 9th deadline for tariffs and for trade deals to be done with the United States. For some just perspective, we caught up with Henry Jennings from Marcus today, noting those mixed signals from the U.S. president.
We're kind of in wait and see mode. We're having some mixed signals coming out of the White House in terms of the tariffs. Donald Trump now talking about doubling the 10% or putting an extra 10% on those countries, those BRICS countries that are anti-American. So that is a new development. Of course, we're eagerly awaiting the letters that are supposedly being sent out by Donald Trump in the US to countries to tell them what they will be expected to pay in terms of tariffs.
So that was Henry Jennings, and you can find that full interview online if you like, ausbiz.com.au. So let's get across some corporate stories, shall we? And Nanosonics has launched its newest software, and that sent shares, well, at one point shares were up by about 4%. So again, just as we saw this market sort of fizzle, we saw some of those good gains being taken away as well. That was the stock of the day. Stand by. We'll get you some analysis on that one. PointsBet says that a Canadian Provincial Alcohol and Gaming Commission has approved the bookmakers' takeover by Japanese gaming giant Mixi. I mentioned South 32 agreeing to sell its Cerro Matoso nickel operation in northern Colombia. AML 3D, now that has jumped to a one-year high on collaboration, a new collaboration agreement with the U.S. Navy. And Dean Fergie from Cyan Investment Management weighed in on that one. He's actually a shareholder in AML 3D, and you can listen to that interview up online as well. I know it's there because I published it my very self. All right, and Cobram Estates is poised for its best day ever, apparently, on some strong results that put through and really putting a focus. I was reading through the release on its U.S. operations. I wasn't sort of aware that they had a foothold there, so it's interesting to see that it's going to double down on that strategy. And yeah, we mentioned Northern Star Resources, Regis Resources, gold production coming in at the upper end of its guidance, still the share price coming under pressure. Yeah, and Bellevue Gold reached record production rates over the final quarter of FY25. In other companies that are moving, PYC Therapeutics is soaring on safety approval for its kidney disease drug trial. And we're watching BMG Resources rising on a potential gold ore processing agreement. And Cleanaway Waste Management has had a good day after Jefferies has hiked its price target. So yeah, some interesting corporate stories, but I did mention that the stock of the day was Nanosonics. Here's what David Lane from Ord Minnett and Kai Chen from MPC Markets had to say about that one.
This new announcement has the potential to upgrade a lot of those machines which are over 7 years old. So there's the potential that they get some additional sales from the new Trophon 3 and also those hospitals that have got the Trophon 2 can upgrade their software as well. So I think overall it is a positive. The other thing that Nanosonics gets from this technology is the fact that the hospitals need to purchase a cartridge that's got hydrogen peroxide in it to every time they disinfect the ultrasound machines. So I think it gives ongoing revenue.
Given a lot of these biotech stock, they certainly are volatile, as David mentioned. So, similar with Clarity last year, but it's it's very different. I mean, Nanosonics obviously has revenue, so that is really good, and it's good seeing that they are releasing updates to stay up to date for their existing customers.
So there you go. That was Nanosonics. And some pretty positive commentary there. You can find Stock of the Day online, ausbiz.com.au, or you can go to our YouTube channel. We post it there as well. Now, I did mention Dean Fergie talking about AML 3D. Defense obviously has been such a hot thematic so far this year. But I also spoke with Dean about small caps, even here in Australia, that are looking to add Bitcoin with some of their excess cash. So putting Bitcoin on the books, so to speak. Here's what Dean Fergie from Cyan had to say about that.
One is a company we know quite well called Locate Technologies. It used to be called Zoom to You. They do basically software for route optimization and delivery services. So they've got a real business there. I think they do about sort of $12 million in revenue. So it's reasonably it's a quality business. They raised about $1.5 million in a placement, and they started up an ATM facility here, and they've raised another probably up to about $1 million now. They have bought, I think, just a touch over 10 Bitcoin for their portfolio. So you get sort of like $1.6 million worth of value there. And the shares have performed really, really strongly. Volumes have been massive in the stock. The stock's gone from kind of 5 cents up to around sort of, close to 20 at the moment. So it's a business that's really embraced sort of investor interest, and it's been really, really good for their liquidity and also their balance sheet.
So that was Dean Fergie from Cyan Investment Management. You can check that out online. I really encourage you to, because it is an interesting phenomenon. Started overseas with the likes of big mega caps like MicroStrategy, but we're starting to see a few small caps here in Australia get Bitcoin on the books, so to speak. Now, it was Monday today, stating the obvious, I know, but every couple of weeks, Raymond Chan from Morgans comes in to speak with us. And I know you all out there love stock specifics, and Ray always obliges. And today, he joined us with, I suppose you could say, a boring is beautiful stock. So here's Raymond Chan from Morgans on Amcor and why he sees upside to come.
In fact, the management is targeting cost synergy of around $650 million US over the next 3 years. And we don't just believe the management will do that, we look at their track record. And in the past, they have been able to extract the cost synergy from the previous acquisition. So we think it's no different this time. They will likely to deliver that. And also, we also look at the product mix as well. Amcor is more on the traditional consumer product, that type of basket. Whereas Berry, which is what they acquired back in November 2024, is more focused on the high, fast-growing healthcare, pet food, beauty, that sort of packaging business. We think the marriage of the two businesses will be quite complementary to each other. So this is yet another reason we think, Amcor should do well despite the current volatility.
So you can listen to Ray's full investment thesis on Amcor online. We've got it up there. Just search Raymond Chan if you're unfamiliar with the website, or you could search Amcor. Our website and app allows you to follow people, so your favorite experts or your favorite companies, and that way that content will be surfaced for you when you come to our beautiful AusBiz ecosystem. All right, we do get a lot of questions about the retailers, and we spoke with Johannes Fall from Morningstar today. With the RBA's interest rate cut in mind, he says that the cost of living crisis is pretty much over. I mean, some might beg to differ, but the worst of it perhaps. And that means, in his view, consumers are ready to shop, which could mean upside for retail stocks. Let's have a listen.
Another defensive play that we actually think is undervalued is Endeavour. So Australia's biggest liquor retailer has been struggling with, again, because of the cost of living pressures that we see in the past, people have more, I would say, traded down in terms of the alcohol they've been consuming. So volumes have softened, but also the type of products bought, with lower margin products, we see that reverting too, with a better consumer outlook.
So that was Johannes Falls. So yes, he talks Endeavour, but he also talks Temple & Webster. I believe he talks JB Hi-Fi. He talks about a whole bunch of retailers. So if you're interested in that sector, you shall and should go to our website and check that one out. It might also be in the COB newsletter as well. If you don't subscribe to the newsletter, you really should go to ausbiz.co/newsletter. All right, let's take a look at some of the leaders today. Origin Energy had a cracker of a session, up by 6.5%. So we did have a broker move on it, Morgan Stanley lifting its price target to $9.46. But look, there's got to be something else going on there. That's a pretty punchy move. SiteMinder also doing well by percentage terms, up by 3.5%. And so we are watching that one with much interest. Helio Group, well, it had a terrible week last week. Bellevue Gold, we already discussed. And IPH up by about 3%. Now, taking a look at the laggards, Northern Star, so just disappointing. You can't disappoint when you're in such a hot sector without being punished. Clarity, volatile stock, I know I say that all the time, but there's no news, down by 6.4%. HMC Capital shedding close to 6%. And Polynovo as well, down by 5.25% to $1.17. In the small to mid-cap space, Amplia Therapeutics having a great session. There was news. I forget it off the top of my head, but check it out. It is up by 25%. Brockman Mining, Encounter Resources, so you can see the resources theme there as well. Some of the laggards, though, Antipa Minerals is off by close to 15%. Peak Minerals down by 10% as well. And Elsight, interesting, because we were talking about that one in relation to the defense thematic with Dean. It's down by close to 10%. Tonight, we do have the BRICS Summit happening in Brazil. Also, EU retail sales. Clearly, we'll be watching for any headlines out of the United States in relation to tariff deadlines, that tariff deadline being delayed. Any details, on that front, we'll be keeping a very close eye on. We've got Donald Trump, the U.S. president, threatening an extra 10% worth of tariffs on BRICS as those leaders do meet in Brazil, saying that if any of the countries align themselves with the, quote, anti-American policies of the BRICS group of developing nations, he will impose an additional 10% tariff. Now, the big one that we haven't really discussed yet is the RBA rate decision tomorrow. So yes, we get the NAB Business Survey, but I dare say it will pale in comparison to the rate decision that comes through at 2:30, and then the commentary to follow from Reserve Bank Governor Michelle Bullock. So we caught up with Harry Murphy from Oxford Economics a short time ago. He says that the central bank doesn't actually necessarily need to cut right now, but acknowledges that a likely preemptive rate cut is on the cards. Take a listen.
Probably more of a cut for the future than it is for the circumstances now. It would be a bit of a break from recent history in that the RBA has tended to wait for the big quarterly CPI print before moving. We won't get that until after they meet. So, look, it's as I say, more of a cut in the circumstances of the global turmoil that's unfolding. Still subdued household spending, but as I say, the Aussie economy at the moment is actually doing pretty well, particularly when we've got the labour market as strong as what it is.
So we will have full coverage of the decision at 2:30 here on AusBiz, followed by the media conference being held by the Reserve Bank Governor Michelle Bullock. So keep us tuned in and we'll keep you abreast of everything the RBA and its board has to say tomorrow. Look, let's just quickly take a look at where the local market finished. So that, as we always say, is the CBO Australia Index on your screen. But I know you want to know where the S&P ASX 200 finished. So down by about a tenth, close to 0.2% at 8,589. So that's after minting that fresh record high on Friday. We had a bit of a lack of a lead in, considering that U.S. markets were closed for Independence Day. And then, of course, some of that confusion around the headlines coming from the trade front. NASDAQ and S&P 500 E-minis still under pressure. So we'll be watching that and how it evolves as we head toward the European Open. That is it for the COB today. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Catch up with what you may have missed online, and we'll see you tomorrow morning from 9:45.